Hey guys, I've already done an insane amount of guides and videos on Hell Let Loose, but there are a couple of issues that keep coming up in the comment sections time and time again. I am constantly seeing people complain that they pop their heads out of cover and get domed without being able to see the enemy or tell where the shots are coming from. I tried addressing this in my How Not to Die video, but given how prevalent the issue seems to be, I decided to make this video and take the topic head on. So, I'll be going over how to deal with this situation. First, I'll talk about the problem itself, and then I'll go over some tips regarding gameplay and some concepts like map awareness that you should be thinking about not only when dying all the time, but pretty much at all times while playing Hell Let Loose. But before that, I would like to give a huge shout out to my Patreon subscribers. Thank you all so much for your continued support. If you enjoy these videos, please check out the full playlist of Hell Let Loose guides and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Alright, let's start by understanding what the problem is and why it happens. Now, the problem here isn't actually seeing the enemy in a Where's Waldo sense. This game doesn't suffer from the Battlefield 5 issue where you sometimes can't see people lying down directly in front of you. You can hide yourself effectively in some areas, but if you're being shot by someone that's 10 or 20 meters away just laying down on the grass, chances are you will probably see them. The problem lies in the sheer amount of cover available and the distance at which engagements happen. There is a wide variety of different map designs in Hell Let Loose, ranging from wide open fields like Purple Heart Lane to the claustrophobic city streets of Carentan. In maps with wide open terrain, you need to try to move along any small ridge or terrain difference in the map, be it a fence, a set of trees, or a house. When you get shot, assume that the enemy is doing the same, so look for enemies along roads, the edges of forests, and so on. Now, forest maps like Hurtgen and Hill 400 are a beast of their own, and I bet that's where most people are having problems spotting enemy soldiers. The first key to understanding why you're not being able to see the enemy is realizing that you can't play maps like Hill 400 the same way you play Carentan or Utah Beach. It is extremely easy to spot someone when they are running through a forest, and it is extremely hard to spot someone that's laying down in one. Every single tree could have an enemy hiding behind it, which means when you get shot in a place like this, there's just no way you're going to be able to spot your shooter. Compare this to this street in Carentan, where you only have a handful of places where an enemy could be hiding, or a field in Utah Beach where there are breaks in the hedgerows. These are entirely different situations and require entirely different approaches. If you're being constantly pinned down in a forest map, you will have to try a completely different angle of approach that blocks the view and angles that you were exposed to earlier. In less dense maps, you can get away with running to the next ditch or the next city street. And that's where the second part of the problem comes in, how players are reacting to getting killed from seemingly nowhere. Most players will want to get revenge and they will spawn at the exact same spot, run roughly towards the same area, and poke their head around to scan the area, try and see where they got shot, and 90% of the time, this will get you absolutely nowhere and you'll be shot again and again and again. As I mentioned earlier, there is often just way too many places to check, and the enemy already knows where you are or where you'll likely be. This is even worse if you're a regular soldier. If you're an officer, using your binoculars goes a long way and can help a ton because you can scope people out from beyond their effective range of fire and use it to try and locate the enemy. But whether soldier or officer, trying to spot and shoot a concealed enemy from roughly the same spot is almost always a bad idea. The enemy already has the upper hand in the engagement. It's the reason why you got shot in the first place, so chances are you are still really visible to the enemy whether you are coming from 20 meters to the right or 20 meters to the left. It's just not a good strategy and one that will lead to more and more frustration. So, how do you deal with this situation effectively? Well, there's a bunch of different concepts that I want to touch on. First, let's start with map awareness. Whether it's your first time playing a map or your 50th, you should be able to get a lot of information from just looking at the map. Pay attention to where the sectors are, where the enemy can build garrisons, and where they could have OPs. Think about where the brunt of the enemy forces will be coming from and where their flanks are. This is made even easier when your teammates are spread out and are already fighting the enemy, and you have a bunch of spawn points acting as radar. Some of this will come with experience, but you should be able to tell at a glance which areas are probably quite risky and which are relatively safe. It doesn't matter exactly where the enemy is, but getting a feel for enemy density and possible lines of defense and attack is absolutely paramount at getting good in this game. Your map is your first resource at learning to predict and react to where the enemy is. Look at it and spot pieces of cover like woods, trenches, tall grass, and assume that the enemy will use them to get a good vantage point when they are trying to defend. Once you've narrowed down where the enemy might be shooting from, assume that there might be enemies up to 100 meters to either side and act accordingly. The second point I want to mention that this brings up is the need to flank. And by flanking, I don't mean running along the other side of the road or try to approach from 50 or 100 meters away. I mean going halfway across the map to go completely around the enemy position. I mean getting enough distance from whoever shot you that even if they happen to see you again, they will not be able to land a good shot. 2 grid squares, 400 meters, 450 meters away. That's what I'm talking about. That's what you need to do a flank. Yes, it will take a long time and you won't be able to get very far unless you're a squad leader or part of a squad that's actively trying to do this, but that's what you need to do. Try setting up a garrison that will let you respawn if your OP gets taken down while you try and flank. If you keep heading down the same stretch of terrain, the same grid, the same general area of attack, you will keep going down. Matches can be really long, so taking 5 to 10 minutes to run through enemy territory and set up a decent spawn point is absolutely worth the time investment. That said, I think it's important to mention that getting killed often is absolutely part of this game. That's the way Hell Let Loose works, the way the spawn points work. It's how you get the illusion that you're fighting more than just 50 people on the other side, because lives are kind of expendable, and attacks generally require tons and tons of infantry to succeed, which usually means a lot of deaths. You will run into situations where you're trying to push a point and die over and over and over again, and that's fine. That is just part of what's going to happen. Take a look at this footage, for example. I took my squad all the way around the map to finally get into a great flanking position from the north, which is precisely what I was talking about earlier. Once I set down my OP, we started pushing the point, and I might have died 10 or 15 times while trying to get inside the strong point and take down their garrison. Of course it was frustrating, but it was also extremely effective at creating an opportunity, a distraction, so that the main bulk of my team could push from the front lines. I did manage to sneak in and take down the enemy garrison, but even after that I still died over and over again because of the sheer amount of enemies defending the point. In the end, we managed to beat that round and I ended up with a score of 19 kills and 40 deaths. A lot of people might look at that and think that I played really badly, but that is not the case. The fact that I managed to take down their garrison, which led us to capping the point and eventually winning the round, is way more important and had a much greater impact on the game than getting more frags would. Matches in Hell Let Loose can last over an hour, so getting killed 10 times in 10 minutes is kind of irrelevant if you still manage to destroy an enemy garrison or OP, or get that critical shot on an enemy tank. One last point that I want to talk about is the use of smoke, because it can go a long ways towards preventing the enemies from getting a shot on you, even if you're not exactly sure where the enemy is. A lot of people simply do not understand what smoke is for or when to use it, and they just go ahead and throw it whenever or never use it at all. So first, if you're not being shot at or you haven't been spotted, do not use smoke. Smoke will let everyone know that there is some amount of infantry coming, so if the enemy is not aware of you, do not use smoke. If you're getting shot at, dropping smoke and going prone will allow you to cover a short distance to get some cover and maybe shoot back. Getting behind a group of trees is always a good idea, but I do mean a group of trees and not a tree. Dropping smoke right on the enemy is the ideal situation, since this will force them to move if they want to keep track of you, which will allow you to see them way more easily. If you're too far away, then try dropping one smoke grenade, get to where that smoke is, and then throw another one. This staggering of smoke will help you keep concealed as you cover a much greater distance. Does this mean you won't get shot? No, it doesn't. but at least you won't be getting shot at accurately, so eventually you should be able to get across to wherever it is that you want to be. To recap everything, don't fixate on finding whoever shot you. Always keep the actual objective in mind, which is winning, not killing specific enemies. Don't repeat the exact same path thinking things will go differently. Have enough patience to completely outflank your enemy and learn to read and gain information from the map. Not just what's actually visible on the map, but what you can infer from it and get a sense of how risky going around different parts of the map actually is. Don't attack the enemy where he is strongest. Always look for an advantage, for something that gives you the upper hand in the engagement, be it a piece of cover, be it the element of surprise, or whatever. Realize that you will die a lot, and that is totally fine. Just try to make the best of it, and hey, if you're just having a bad day in the game, then call it quits and go play something else. You will play better next time when you're less frustrated. Alright guys, that's gonna be it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, consider subscribing. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.